Thursday, October 20th, 2016. Where were you? Where were you when you first watched the reveal trailer for the Nintendo Switch? I remember waking up one morning, going on my computer, and seeing the first Nintendo Switch trailer on the YouTube homepage. I thought, what the hell is Switch? It didn't sound like a console name to me. What I saw in that trailer made me smile so much and so quickly. It was clearly the next evolution of the Wii U. Instead, unlike the Wii U gamepad, which had to be somewhere close to the console, you could go anywhere with the Switch. This was 7 years ago, pre-Steam Deck, pre-portable PC gaming. Seeing that shot of the people playing basketball and then stopping to take a break to play 2K was so cool. Or that guy on the plane playing Skyrim. This was after Sony gave up on handhelds after the failure of the Vita. The only other handheld we had in mainstream gaming was the 3DS. And the Switch was showing us something that I hadn't even imagined, bridging the gap between handheld and consoles. That first trailer is, to me, one of the most legendary trailers in gaming, at least specifically for hardware. Just seeing 2K and Skyrim was a signal that third parties were willing to work with Nintendo again, after almost all of them abandoning Nintendo during the Wii U, rightfully so. The Wii U sold like crap, so it didn't really make sense for them to bring their games over there. While it's true that the 3DS did very well for them, many speculated that if Nintendo had another console flop like the Wii U back to back, it felt like it would be over for their console days. It felt like we were getting very close to seeing Nintendo IP on other systems, much like how seeing Sonic on Nintendo hardware seemed impossible back in the 90s, but we all know how that went. But somehow, that single Switch trailer, that single reveal trailer, did something that the Wii U never could. It had people talking about Nintendo.
So can we get a drum roll?
If this is
one last surprise. This is it. Jimmy, are you ready?
No.
Are you ready?
Yeah, no, I'm freaking out. This is not the Switch.
This is the Nintendo Switch.
That's what I'm talking about.
Remember to mark your calendars. The Nintendo Switch is going on sale around the world on March the 3rd for $300. It is the company's latest handheld system.
Even I think this is pretty cool. Overnight, Nintendo announcing its brand new gaming console called the Switch. It starts going on sale March 3rd. Look what you can do with it. You can use it at home, and then you make the Switch, tear it apart, use it on the go.
Are you surprised by the response? It's now the fastest selling console in Nintendo's history. So the new Zelda game is, right now it's the 4th highest ranked, rated video game in history.
So what Nintendo's done with the Switch is to bring together, some would say, the best of both markets, the best of the home console and the best of the mobile.
Out of nowhere, the same friends that showed zero interest in my Wii U were talking about pre-ordering the Switch with Breath of the Wild. Nintendo somehow became trendy overnight. I loved my Wii U, and I remember it feeling like a secret console only I had, because I never knew anybody in my personal life who had one. But with the Switch, everything changed. The Nintendo Switch is over 7 years old. It's been a part of my life, many of our lives, for 7 years. And I don't know about you, but I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago. A lot has changed. We've all been through a lot, and with me through it all has been the Nintendo Switch. About a year after that reveal trailer, Thursday, October 26th, 2017, I was sitting in my 2007 Honda Civic that had a shitty paint job peeling everywhere. It was a little after 11 p.m. and I had the heat blasting through the vents. It was starting to get really cold in New York. I remember I was just passing the time by talking to my then girlfriend. She was making fun of me for what I was doing, saying that I was too old to be waiting for a midnight launch for a new game. I was just minutes away from Super Mario Odyssey and a new Nintendo Switch. I didn't have the money to buy the system alongside Breath of the Wild at launch, so I put off buying the console for a few months. But I prepared for the time Mario Odyssey came out, and both me and my bank account were finally ready for a new Nintendo console. And here we are, almost 7 years later since I bought the system. It feels like any day now I could wake up and we could all have that same experience again. Think about it, in the next 2 or 3 months you're gonna pull up YouTube and on the homepage is going to be the reveal trailer for the new Nintendo console. The next Switch or whatever they'll call it. I'm really hoping they call it like the Super Switch, I think that would be awesome. But if they want to play it safe, just call it the Switch 2, that would be alright too. The last thing they need is like another confusing name, so please don't call it the Switch U. Please don't call it the Switch U. So before we start this new chapter of Nintendo, I just wanted to make a video to appreciate what we've had over the past 7 years. This video is just meant to be a time capsule. Maybe you're watching this in 5, 10, 20 years, just wondering what it was like to have a Switch back in its heyday. Or maybe you just want to reminisce on old times with me. I've been seeing a lot of PS2 nostalgia videos lately on YouTube, and it really warms my heart. That was my childhood console, and I think the Switch has a lot of PlayStation 2 energy to it. As of the time of this video, there's a reasonable chance that the Switch is going to overtake the PS2 for the most sold console ever, which is insane. You can say what you want about the Switch, how it was underpowered even when it came out. You would be right. Instead of being a powerhouse, the Switch was just a celebration of gaming. It was Captain America calling the Avengers to assemble. The fact that I can play Super Mario Sunshine, Nier Automata, Skyrim, Doom, Dark Souls, Bioshock, Red Dead Redemption, Bioshock Infinite, a shit ton of PlayStation 1 games, and every freaking indie game ever made, with good performance either on my TV or in my hands during a road trip, is so beyond cool. I remember when Doom Eternal and Nier Automata proved all expectations wrong, and those are seen as some of the best ports on the system. And yes, I'm well aware that there are plenty of games with bad performance on the Switch. Of course, there are some pretty awful ports. There's a lot of games that came to the Switch which shouldn't have. Switch ports sell very well, so it's clear why publishers will put out crappy versions of good games on the system. But if we were to sit here and make a list of all the games that run well on the Switch, both in handheld and docked mode, I'm willing to bet you that you would have enough games to play for the next 10 years. Easily. The amount of games that run well on the Switch is astounding, given its low power and capabilities. Maybe I'm just a simple person, but you used to need to have this huge box and a controller and access to a TV to play Metroid Prime, but now you just need this thing. And that's so cool to me. I was dealing with a lot of hectic moments in my life when I first got the Switch, so I didn't really have enough time to properly focus on it or Super Mario Odyssey. The new year arrived, 2018. I remember seeing the name Celeste pop up multiple times during my searches online for a new game to play. I decided to dust off the little console and download Celeste. If there's one game that I have to credit with getting me to fall in love with the Switch, it's Celeste. There's probably hour-long videos out there about the Switch's impact on indie games. It's basically been seen as the indie game machine for the past few years. As for Celeste, I can still remember playing it obsessively for weeks. Not only was I in love with the icy theme of the game, which went really well with the last few weeks of winter I was going through, but when it came time to go to work, I could do something I've never done before in my life. I could take the game I was playing on my TV and put it in my backpack. I grew up with a Game Boy Color and then moved on to an Advance and of course a DS. Handheld gaming was not new to me, but there was always a big difference between what a handheld game was and what a console game was. The Switch meant that lunch breaks at work would never be the same again. It meant that road trips weren't limited to smaller games. Looking back on it, I think a large part of the reason why the Switch clicked with so many people is because of our increasingly busy lives. Maybe you work 2 jobs. Maybe you work overnight shifts where not much is happening. Maybe you have to travel a lot for work. Maybe you're busy with your kids. Either way, if you're a busy person, the Switch was your best gaming friend. I remember I had this weekend job where I would clean this small office building. I would spend 2 to 3 hours cleaning, and then, since nobody was in on weekends, I would go to the janitor's office, which was just this small room in the back of the garage, and I would take out my Switch and play Dark Souls. I wonder why I got fired a month later. I really wonder. There was this cool moment where I detached the Joy-Cons and I leaned back in the office chair, and I just couldn't believe I was playing Dark Souls like this. Because of the nature of the Switch, it meant that Nintendo games we'd usually only see on handhelds could finally be experienced on your big TV. Nothing seemed off the table for Switch. For the first time in 19 freaking years, we had a new, original 2D Metroid. And again, it wasn't limited to a 2-inch Game Boy screen. We had it on our giant TVs. For like the last 2 decades, Zelda fans have been begging for a game where you play as Princess Zelda, and we finally got a game starring her. This is an idea that they would have kept to handheld, but now because of the Switch, they don't have to do that. It's kind of like Princess Peach. The last Peach game was handheld only, but now you can play it on your TV. People thought Kirby would go to 3D back on the N64. Nope. But on the Switch, he finally did. And arguably, it's the best Kirby game. Super Smash Bros. Has its greatest roster ever on the Switch. I mean, we even got 2 remakes of Japanese-only visual novels from the NES, and they announced and released a 3rd one just a little while ago. Anything feels possible out of Nintendo right now, and that's so exciting, and I feel like it's all because of this newfound energy brought out by the Switch. Like, if they announced a new Star Fox tomorrow, I just wouldn't be surprised. From an outside point of view, it seems like the Switch has completely rejuvenated Nintendo as a company. They feel so alive and full of focused creative energy. The Mario movie was a success, they're doing an amusement park, and they have a museum now. It feels like their vision is finally coming true. Honestly, I think if you look at their whole history in video games, ever since the N64, they've kind of made a lot of dumb decisions. Over and over again, it seems like they shoot themselves in their own foot. But they stuck to their guns no matter what, and it obviously paid off in the long run. There's so many memories I can list off, like spending hours in Mario Odyssey or Dragon Quest XI, or spending late nights playing Animal Crossing New Horizon during the first few weeks of the pandemic, unsure of what was to come. As for my favorite Switch game, it's probably going to be a disappointing answer, but Link's Awakening. I've always been a diehard fan of the Game Boy original, so seeing it brought to life with quality of life enhancements and one of my favorite art styles in recent memory, it's still like a dream come true, pun intended. But I think my favorite memory is going to the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate midnight launch with my friends and playing the game for hours that night. That's definitely my most played game of all time. And I literally got every character I ever wanted into the franchise. I've been wanting Banjo-Kazooie and Sora since like Brawl, man, and they did it. They finally did it, and it was awesome. The Switch has very recently become the longest running Nintendo home console without a successor. So even when Switch 2 releases, we'll probably be seeing plenty of Switch 1 games for the next few years. But despite that, it does feel like a fitting time to turn the page, to start the next chapter of Nintendo. And for that, I'm extremely excited. And I just want to say, thank you for a great generation. Thank you, Nintendo Switch, and goodbye. So before I actually end the video, while I was making it, I thought it would be fun to reach out to 2 friends that I made through making YouTube videos over the past year. I didn't really give them any strict rules or guidelines. All I asked is, maybe tell me about their favorite Switch game or Switch memory. And it turns out that both of the clips they sent me worked out perfectly with things I was saying earlier. For example, remember what I was talking about with Switch ports earlier? PSPMan has a perfect example.
By far, my favorite Switch memory was re-experiencing Resident Evil Revelations 2. I sunk a ridiculous amount of time into this game's PlayStation Vita port. To make a long story short, it's pretty terrible. While this version released as an all-in-one package instead of the episodic style of the original, it did retain a lot of the microtransactions present in the raid mode, and the game design decisions that come with that. A nail in the coffin if this footage isn't doing anything for you. But I didn't have another way to play it at the time, so I stuck with it and slummed it. When I got my Switch, one of the first things I did was check if the port of Revelations 2 on there was any good. Not only is it good, it's easily the definitive way to play it. Everything that has ever sucked about any version of this game is gone, and everything else has only been strengthened. All of the money-grubby game design is missing, and everything has been completely overhauled, making the raid mode a massive single-player grind fest. This is on top of it being optimized correctly for the hardware this time. Having spent hundreds of hours in the crap PlayStation Vita release, and then getting to play this version that has everything done right and more, really put things into perspective for me. These are the types of video games I want to spend my time with, not this.
And remember how I just mentioned the midnight launch for Smash Brothers? Well, my other friend, TheNamesJer, has a similar memory.
Yeah, so I think my favorite memory of the Switch is going to have to be going to GameStop for its midnight release. It might even be the last one I ever went to. And honestly, that's kind of emblematic of where the Switch sits in gaming history. Like, it's this final chapter, kind of middle ground between the physical era of gaming as we move into this new digital age that we're seeing now. Yeah, because like back then you would have to go to GameStop at like 9 o'clock. You'd pay for it up front. They'd give you like a ticket with your number on it. And like that's what position you were in line. You'd have to wait around until midnight. And it just kind of reminds me of like how community driven and how special these events used to be. Everyone used to get together. We're all excited for the same thing. And you just really don't get that with digital gaming now, where midnight releases are just a clock on your system.
Once again, I'd like to thank PSPMan and TheNamesJer for their features, for their submissions. Thank you for taking time out of your day to make them. If you want to see their channels, click the links in the description. Okay, peace.